and we had this team, and we were national, and I pretty much took myself to the edge of burnout. Like, it was as hard as I could possibly work as a 24, 25-year-old. It was nonstop. And even I didn't understand, like, so much of what was happening. So I began the process of writing books as a way to try and capture those learnings and clarify my thinking and try and figure out what the hell happened.
My name is Ed JC Smith. I got a second chance at life, and I'm here to help you live life on your terms. All right, welcome to Coaching Business Secrets. In the house, we have Mr. Daniel Prestely. Give him a hand, ladies and gentlemen.
It's good to be in the house.
Today's session, we are going through how to be oversubscribed. If you're a coach, consultant, author, expert, and you are struggling in this area, we have the number one expert in this area. So much of an expert, he wrote the book Oversubscribed. And it's an absolutely incredible book. I want to say thank you, Daniel, for being here. I read the book. You wrote it in 2015. I believe it was given to me in 2015. It was a critical book that changed how I went into live events. Off the back of it, we got to a stage where we were doing 1,000-person people events on a monthly basis.
Wow.
Hopefully without our ads, like we used to build this crescendo, and then the ad accounts used to get shut down, which was exciting. But yeah, I'm really excited for you to be here, Daniel. Thank you so much. Do you want to just give a quick bio, because you got an amazing story as well?
Yeah, well, my background is as an entrepreneur. I started a company when I was 21 years old. It took off pretty quickly. I went from 0 to $1 million in the first year, and then to 11 million in 3 years after that. So it was a very fast growth business for somebody under the age of 25. That was all in Australia. And then I exited that business, moved to the UK. I set up an entrepreneur accelerator in 2010. Since then, we've worked with over 3,500 companies, worked with the largest private equity company in the world, FTSE 100, Inc. 5000 companies. And I've written 4 books on entrepreneurship, spoken at London Business School, London School of Economics, about these kind of concepts. So yeah, and it's been wonderful getting to know you on Clubhouse, because that's where we've been hanging out for the last couple of months.
It's been crazy. It's just beautiful. I love listening to how you think. And so I've got like a range of different questions, but I'd like to talk about specific get to know you as well, because I just think for anyone that's listening, sometimes I don't think they get the importance of finding someone that is streamlining their thinking. And I think that's what like really attracted me to you, that you were very clear in your thinking. How does one start getting really clear in their thinking?
It's the books. So the reason I write books is because I have unclear thinking, and the books are a clarifying process. It's a process where you have to go and kind of assimilate all of your knowledge and your stories and the research that you've done, and kind of bring it all together in a coherent fashion, because you're trying to explain it to people at scale. You're trying to put it into a document that you're going to be able to remember. When I told you about that first period of time where I went through that very fast growth, and there was this mentor that I had in my life at the time who was giving me profound insights and lessons. And I just didn't want to forget them. So I started writing them down in my computer. And, he was an interesting guy. Like, for example, we were walking across the street, and this homeless guy came up to him and said, "Have you got any money?" And he reached into his pocket and pulled out $100 and gave him $100. And I said, "Oh my God, that's, he's going to spend that on alcohol." And I said, he says to me, "We're going to spend that on alcohol." And I was like, "What?" He said, "Well, we were about to go to the bar and spend it on alcohol. What's wrong with him spending it on alcohol? If he wants to, it's his choice. He can do with it what he's like. I trust him." And I was like, "What?" And he said to me, "Look, Daniel, we all have our addictions. My addictions have made me successful in business. His addictions have made him homeless, but we all have our addictions. And I'm not going to judge him. If he's asking me for money, I'm going to give him some money." And I was like he was that kind of guy, right? I tell you that story because I want to kind of paint you a little bit of a picture of that kind of person. He was an interesting thinker. When you would ask him, what do you do for a living? He would say, I breathe. He says, otherwise I stop living. And, he's a crazy guy, right? Kind of kooky guy, very kooky guy. And anyway, so I was writing all these lessons down, and it was like every single day I'd learn something. And then in that year, I ran 274 live events, and we had this team, and we were national, and I pretty much took myself to the edge of burnout. Like, it was as hard as I could possibly work as a 24, 25-year-old. It was nonstop, and even I didn't understand so much of what was happening. So I began the process of writing books as a way to try and capture those learnings and clarify my thinking and try and figure out what the hell happened. So once I realized that was a really great process, I did it again and again. So I've been writing a new book every 2 years. I just wrote a book on entrepreneurial parenting, how to raise entrepreneurial kids. And it's
That's
really
great.
just capturing ideas. I do it for myself, really, in many ways.
I love that, dude. Okay, so within Oversubscribed, I remember when I was reading it, and there was a point, and I'll never forget this, because it was completely different to how I thought like an event was meant to go. And there was the point of, and it was the first time I've ever read it or heard it, and it was when you were talking about obviously building up to that, the crescendo of it, but let me see if I can get it out correctly. You're saying to the audience, would you like to we've taken on everyone that wants to come to the event, right?
Yeah, do you want to sell your ticket?
Yeah, you want to sell your ticket? I was like, holy God, that is good.
So that actually happened, and it was originally a bit of an accident, but it worked. So we had a venue for 700 people. We had 900 paid tickets before we knew what we could do with. So we were actually in a position where we had, we knew that paid tickets pretty much turn up, and basically we were selling gold, silver, and bronze tickets, and we had different deals out there. And within a day or two, we realized that, oh, wow, we're at 937 or something like that. And we've only got 700 seats in the entire building. Like that, there is no expanding. It's a fixed seat theater. So there's nothing we can do. And then we quickly started a waiting list and got people joining the waiting list. And we ended up very rapidly with 150, 160 people on the waiting list. So, so we decided to see what would happen if we mail all of the people who have a ticket and just say the event's full, but there's a huge waiting list. Would you like to sell us back your ticket for double what you paid? So if you paid 70, we'll pay you 140, and we'll pay you. You can double your money just by giving the ticket back. And it was just awesome because people were like, no way, I'm never going to give that ticket back. I mean, some people did. I think we might've had 30 people who actually did just decided not to have the ticket, and we sold the tickets onto other people. But it was just so much, the room had so much energy. Like when we rocked up on stage, I remember that actual event. I hopped on stage. I didn't say anything. I just got up there and walked out the front of the stage. And the energy in the room was so high that everyone just burst into laughter. They laughed, right? So they were just like, ha, 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 ha. And I'm like, guys, I haven't said anything to laugh at. Like, what are you guys laughing about? And then they applaud and they clap. And I'm sitting there going, wow, I've never been in a room like this. We're in NIDA, National Academy of Dramatic Arts, National Institute of Dramatic Arts in Sydney, and they were just on edge. There was electricity in the room that day. And it was just, and they were all great entrepreneurs, great people, but it was so funny how sending out that email, taking it away from them and doubling, like that alpha move, basically. Yeah. But it was done genuinely. We were genuinely that oversubscribed.
So
did you try it?
I got the concept then, and we were running too many events at one time, and it was all it was all, you know, as part of just putting too much out there sort of thing. So we were, you know, I read that and I was like, oh my God, this is, because it really spoke to me as a very, it was just a great, it's just a great concept of oversubscribed. And that, you know, and for those that are listening, it's not just for a live event. It's you know, from you today, you could take those
Coaching
concepts.
business,
Yeah, you
book
could take that
launch.
for, I think it's much deeper concepts of how you can match it to basically any business today. We did a really good event, and I noticed that again, it was the first concept of like really planning. I noticed like within that event, you took way more time, and the build up process. We didn't have those sorts of things. It was a bit like, let's just go. Like, I'm going to take, I still don't have a business plan. Me and my business partner were talking the other day, and he's like, do you think we should have a business plan? And I'm like, I think so. I think maybe it's something that people,
Let's do it in 2025.
he was like, you know, we've been, you know, pretty successful, and without a business plan. I'm not saying that that's
Yeah.
for everyone, but I was pushing him to actually sit down because he's very
But by the
logical.
way, my $11 million company, there was no business plan. It was rolling campaigns that just escalated out of control.
Yeah.
It was just basically campaign after campaign. Also, a lot of the planning stuff that went into the book Oversubscribed was the stuff that we learned towards the very end. And then some of it was stuff that I wish I had have learned. I learned it on reflection. It's like, if I had have done this, that would have been so much better. Yeah. But just for anyone listening, I've used this method for fundraising. I've used it like as in raising angel investor funds. I've used it cosmetics, fashion, coaching, speaking, training, technology, SaaS, like all of that, like the whole gambit. The stuff works. It works again and again. It even works when people know you're doing it, because I'm the person who put the book out saying, here's how I do it. And then I run campaigns to the people who know what I'm doing, and it still works.
Yeah, it makes sense. But yeah, so on the question, on the answer to your question, did I really applied it to, we were running a relationship event. I hadn't quite got the nuances in place, but the concept was like there. And as I said, like me and my business partner, we're best friends. I've known him since day one. So I don't want you, anyone listening to think you don't have to have a plan, but like because we talk and we're so connected,
Yeah.
we were just evolving and rapidly moving forward, and we're able to do eight figures that way. I'm not
You're
saying
in rapport.
we're in rapport all the time, but so the specific event I'm thinking about, we were doing the best to apply that structure and creating that demand, which we did. We just I basically had 400 places. It was in Copthorne Tara in Kensington, so it could only fit 400 people. So we basically sold 800, and then when it came down to it, we were like, hang on a minute, a percentage of people aren't going to turn up, and we messed the whole thing up. That 600 people turned up, and they were like pissed. We were like, although that was still good, because it was, you know, like, you know, that was at a market time, Daniel, where people would just be turning, they would decide, even if they paid, whether they would turn up or not.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't get back to you. And it wasn't like we didn't do our best to manage that situation. It just weren't responding.
But you had an experience of being oversubscribed.
Yeah, 100%. And, you know, that was very, very powerful, because, you know, the social positioning of that which was 100% authentic. We
had events. We have had events where we've had 150 people standing around the edges of the room.
Yeah.
And we've had the hotel saying, you have to stop this thing.
Yeah.
And we're like, just let us go to lunch and we'll sort it out. And we've had events where we're actually telling people, I'm really sorry, you're going to have to leave now. And they're fighting with this. I'm not leaving. I paid to be here and I've come over an hour. And you're like, okay, well, you can stay. And is anyone willing to leave? No, I'm not willing to leave. And like all of that sort of stuff.
That makes sense.
So I've had that experience as well. Yeah.
So how would how would you apply the ideas to today's market, Daniel, so they can understand how to apply it to them right now?
So let me kind of go through a bit of the guts of the idea. The idea is this: there is a capacity that every business has to truly delight somebody, right? Or to truly delight a number of people. Let's call it that. So imagine a beautiful restaurant, and at any given time, they could get 60 people in there. Everyone's happy. Everyone's having a great time. The kitchen's happy. The staff are happy. Everyone's delighted. But as soon as they go 65, 70, 75, 80, 85, 90, now they're cramming people in. The bookings are too tight. The staff aren't happy. The kitchen's overwhelmed. Now nobody's happy, right? So there becomes a point where everyone's delighted, and we can do that really well, or there's a point where everyone gets pissed off. Like, it's not like you're making anyone happy. Everyone's annoyed. So that exists within a business. So the first thing about being oversubscribed is to figure out, at what point can I truly delight people? At what point do I cross the line where I'm not really able to manage emotional uplift in my clients? I'm not able to orchestrate doing amazing things for people. Now, what most people do is they think, oh, just more would be better. Like 1,000 would be better than 500, and 500 would be better than 250, and all that kind of stuff. So they're just constantly saying, well, just more clients would be better than that.
Mm.
And what you really want to do is say, based on my current level of staff, based on my current level of technology, based on all of that, what's my number today? Let's say I'm going to expand later, but what's my number today? So that's the first part of being oversubscribed, knowing your number, knowing your oversubscribed number.
Mm.
And then the second part of it is to run campaigns for signaled interest, not for sales. Now, this is a really key distinction. You're only ever asking people to signal their interest when you're running campaigns, and you're not asking them to buy anything. And what you're trying to do is get something like 5 times your number in signaled interest. So if your number's 100 clients, you want 500 to signal their interest in working with you.
Mm.
At that point, you can pick and choose the best clients that you really want to work with, and or the clients who are most fanatical about working with you. And you can basically accept the right number of clients that you know you can delight, and then you can really delight them, and then you can begin the process again.
Mm.
Now you can do this monthly. You could say it's not it's 100 a year, or it's 20 a month, all right, and you can run a little monthly campaign and do this. So there's a cosmetics business that I know of where they have the capacity to make 3,000 tubs of goop, which is their special skincare range that is made from African producers, from natural organic farms. They use shea butter, ethically sourced and produced. It's really incredible what they do. And it also is an amazing product. And they have raving fans, but they can only make 3,000 tubs per month. That's the point where their standards start to slip. So they have what they call restock events. And the restock is that they basically say at 5 p.m., the website will be restocked, and they let their clients know. And they do this every 2 weeks. And basically every 2 weeks, 1,500 units get sold in about 3 or 4 minutes, done, gone. And then people can only register their interest in those products. And then they get by registering their interest, they get notified when the next restock happens. And then there might be, for 1,500 units, there might be 6,000 to 9,000 people who have registered interest in those units. And this is just rolling every 2 weeks now. So what's amazing about this particular business is Shopify couldn't get their head around this company, because this company was saying, oh, look, we only want to be open effectively for about 10 minutes a month. That's it. Like, there's 2 5-minute windows, and then we're completely sold out. And Shopify are like, we've never had any requests about keeping the store closed and how to keep the store shut. So Shopify actually had to build some functionality for these guys in order to have the campaign. And actually Shopify said, how are you doing this? And they're like, oh, we read this book called Oversubscribed, and we just do what it says in the book. So it's really cool. So yeah, so basically that first part is knowing your number, which is the cutoff number.
So important.
And then signaled interest times 5. So whatever the number is, times by 500%, and just purely and simply going out to drum up signaled interest. Let me give you another example as to how this worked when we raised funds for a startup. So I've got a startup called ScoreApp. ScoreApp is a software company. We wanted to raise £450,000 as a seed round. So we went out to some angel investors. I put together 4 or 5 boardroom presentations with 8 angel investors just prior to COVID. And at the end of the presentation, I presented our business plan. And then I said, would you be able to put forward an expression of interest, whether you'd like to invest or not, and what would be an acceptable range that you'd feel comfortable investing in? The minimum will be 10,000, the maximum will be 50,000. We don't want anyone who's investing more than 50,000 because we don't want that power dynamic. And I even said that. And we also don't want anyone less than 10,000 because we don't want to manage too many investors in order to hit the number. So basically, I went through and I did the 5 boardroom presentations to about 40 angel investors. And we ended up with, I think, something like signaled interest for around £1 million. So then I went back to all the angel investors and said, we've got signaled interest for around £1 million. We're only raising 450. Would you be able to adjust your number down to accommodate? Are you willing to, you said £20,000, are you willing to drop down to £12,000? So we went back through and readjusted all the numbers. They'd never experienced anything like it. They'd never been told no before that they had to adjust their number down. Everyone's like, can you come up? Can you invest more? And basically it was genuine. And if they said, I'm not interested, that's totally fine. We've got other people, we've got more than enough. So we have signaled interest that is above. Now, what most people do when they raise angel funding is they meet with angel investors and then they say, so what do you think? Would you invest? So they're kind of asking for the sale. And what we did is we said, look, we're not taking investment. We're just taking signaled interest at this point. So slow it down. Now, in that example, it wasn't 5 times, but I didn't feel like we needed to have 5 times. We had very serious angel investors. We didn't need to be, up around the 2 or 3 million pounds worth of signaled interest to know that we would get, at that point, we would have just been annoying people.
Just quick question on it, Daniel. Like, what do you say to someone that says, but like, I really need to make it now though. And like, I need to sell, like, cause I need to make my business work now.
Yeah. Well, it can happen very quickly. So let's say I'm a coaching business and I want to sign up 5 clients at £10,000 a client. So my job is only to get 25 people to say that they're interested. So what I might do is I might go out and say, I've got availability to start coaching, doing some coaching work, life coaching work. I'm looking for the right clients. The way that I'm approaching this is I'm going to get 25 people to fill in what their goals are and what they would hope to achieve from coaching. And then once I have a look and review those 25 people, I'm going to select 5. And I can only work with 5. 5 is my capacity. And the other 20, I'll let them know at a later date, but I'm going to work with the people who I think there's the most alignment with the goals that they've got in mind. Would you be interested in filling in a goal alignment form?
Yeah.
Now that could happen in a matter of weeks. You could kind of like, if you really focused on it, you could do 2 weeks of just getting 25 people to do the goals form, and then select the 5 that you think are the best, that would be the best fit. Now, I promise you that works way better.
Yeah.
Way better than trying to go one at a time and begging and all this sort of stuff.
Makes total sense.
It's kind of like, there's a lot of parallels with the dating world. And it's like, if you're desperate to go on a date with someone, they run a mile, and if you're cool and you're kind of, oh, well, you know what, if you're busy that night, that's fine. Well, get back in touch with me when you're not. And if you're genuinely like cool, then it's like, oh, wait a second, maybe I'm not so busy.
Nice. Signal your numbers. So knowing the numbers, signal your what do you say? Your signal or your
signaled interest.
Interest, that's it.
Yeah. And what we're trying to do is create demand and supply tension. So demand and supply tension sets the price. So basic economics is that when you have a tension between the amount of supply versus the amount of demand, then price rises to a profitable point. Now let's have a look at what most businesses are doing. I'll tell you, here's what most businesses are doing. I spoke to a woman who she's got a business that's paying wages. It's doing okay. It's about 7-figure revenue, just around £1 million but everyone gets their wage. But after all the wages are paid, the business always kind of has no money in the bank. It's got a basic cash flow. She said, we've been like this for years and years and years. And she pays herself a reasonable wage, like the kind of money she would get in corporate. She pays her team the kind of money that keeps them happy. But there's just never any profit. So after she does her accounts, it's not profitable. And it's been like that for 5 years. So she says to me that she's going to systematize the business. She's going to put in systems and processes. She's going to run the business more efficiently, all of this sort of stuff. She's going to put automation, technology into the business. And I said to her, I want you to imagine a guitar factory that is producing guitars, and it can produce 1,000 guitars and it can sell 1,000 guitars. And imagine we make the factory super efficient, and now we can produce 1,200 guitars, but there's still only 1,000 people who want to buy guitars. What do you think would happen to the price of those guitars if we can produce 1,200, but there's only 1,000 who want to buy them? And she's like, oh, yeah, well, there'd be 200 left over. I said, okay, what happens if we make the factory even more efficient and we go 1,500 that we can produce, but we can only sell 1,000? Well, now there's 700 guitars left over, right? Because there's the first 200 we couldn't sell. Now there's another 500 we can't sell. So what does a business do if it's got 700 guitars sitting in the warehouse unsold? It starts slashing prices and trying to clear the warehouse and sell them down. I said, so what you're doing, even though you don't feel like you're doing this, what you're actually doing is making your factory more efficient. And you're actually creating the capacity to generate way more business, to look after more clients. And you're not manufacturing excess demand. So therefore your prices are going to go down, not up. Your profitability is going to go down, not up. You're going to become a better run business. You're going to be way more professional than you are today. And yet you'll earn more money and it'll drive you insane. She's like, oh my goodness. I said, did you ever hear about Marilyn Monroe? Was a total nightmare to work with. Like Marilyn Monroe, you could book her for a film and she wouldn't show up. She would sit in her trailer all day and they'd have the whole scene ready. And, just a nightmare to work with. The most unprofessional actor. There's a movie made about how she was so unprofessional that this professional actor wouldn't work with her, and Laurence Olivier wouldn't work with her, and all this sort of stuff. And yet she knew how to manufacture demand. And because she was so damn good at manufacturing demand, they would pay any price to work with her. And the more unprofessional she was, the longer you had to book her for in order to get the film done, the less films she could actually do. And then her value went up even more, right? So she was unprofessional and her value went up, not down. So I know that's crazy. I know it's insane. I know it flies in the face of everyone's views, but actually the demand and supply thing is like rule one.
No, I think it's so needed, Daniel, today, because I think we live in this world where, I was just thinking about what you're saying there. But we live in this world where people could just, because they can just get so much, from free information, online. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but
No.
the stats of, I was just putting some recent stats together for a new version of a webinar. But the stats are overwhelm's worse than ever. Depression is increasing, divorce is increasing, obesity is increasing, yet there's tons of free information. And so I do think there's a big movement of, it's also a kind of like a big movement of, I suppose it's our duty to make sure that we as information providers make sure that people actually implement those and are willing to invest into it.
That goes back to this idea of capacity to delight. So, for example, a fitness trainer who puts out free courses and puts out free information and does lots and lots of meal plans and stuff that nobody ever uses is actually delighting nobody. So even though they're pumping a lot of generous stuff out into the marketplace, no one's sitting there going, oh, I feel so delighted because I got all this free stuff because my life didn't improve. However, a fitness trainer who charges £8,000 in order to really dedicate themselves to a client and massively transform their life and work with them at whatever they need to have worked with in order to get the result, can actually leave someone incredibly delighted, even though they're charging £8,000. So the idea here is that the currency is delight, and delight is caused with transformation. So free stuff that's going out there is not necessarily leaving anyone particularly delighted.
Powerful. I hear you. Right. So that's the kind of concepts that's covered in Oversubscribe. Where can people get it from, Daniel? I presume Amazon?
I've cunningly hidden the book on Amazon.
I love your
and
cute.
Audible. I've buried it amongst 250,000 other books.
So if you're listening, honestly, it's an absolute superb, brilliant book that I'm definitely going to go and revisit after this conversation. So Daniel, coming to a close, just some quick fire questions.
Brilliant.
Again, if you can answer these in the quickest time possible,
rapid fire,
if you can. What's something that's misunderstood about you?
What's something that's misunderstood? Look, I'm pretty much an open book. There's mostly, I don't hold much back, so I don't think there is a lot that's misunderstood about me. Probably the only thing is that I don't think of myself as an author or a speaker. I really, genuinely, behind the scenes, I'm an entrepreneur, and I'm building businesses, and I'm raising funding, and I'm building technology, and I'm leading tech teams, and actually, the speaking and the writing thing is something that I've done to process my thinking, but I like to be an entrepreneur, but maybe I would hope some people think of me as that anyway, as an entrepreneur who speaks and writes, as opposed to an author or speaker.
Cool. What don't I know enough to ask you?
That's a strange question. Data. You and I could probably talk for days about the use of data and how transformational data is in business, and what you can do with data, what's coming. I love to geek out on big picture trends around society, where society's heading, where the education system's heading, where, what the planet will look like 10, 15 years from now. I'm sure you and I could really geek out about some of that stuff. I probably find myself running down rabbit holes around macroeconomics and society and humanity, the UN, the United Nations global goals. To me, that's the stuff that I really, truly geek out on. I find myself often talking about the business stuff, but it's the societal change stuff and the humanitarian stuff and the environmental stuff that probably is more of a heartfelt connection. And I dare say that resonates, and we could probably end up having a big, long chat about non-business stuff, but just society and philosophy.
So off the back of that, then, no money, there's no money blocks, there's no time issues. What would you develop project-wise to impact the world?
So the thing I really, truly believe wholeheartedly in is that the entrepreneurial mindset, when it's pure and when it's clean and when it's from the right space, has a real transformational power. And entrepreneurs solving the world's most meaningful problems is, to me, my personal mission. So that's actually what I do. If there was no money and no time constraints, it would probably just be working with the likes of the Elon Musks and the Richard Bransons to get them inspiring younger people who can't afford to be in front of them so much, and creating a framework for them to utilize. I would probably work heavily on introducing a syllabus of entrepreneurship or change management into schools, and to work on the idea of how do you use your critical thinking skills and your emotional intelligence and your IQ and your EQ in order to solve a meaningful problem that would improve society. And if that was a topic that we could teach at schools, and we could actually raise generations of positive change makers and entrepreneurs, and leaders, and you come out of school understanding little mini team structures and company structures and campaigns and how to campaign for change. I would love to do more of that kind of work.
3 people to have dinner with, and they're dead. So it's a difficult dinner, but
well, they have to be dead.
Yeah.
So one would be Rob Stewart. Rob was an environmental campaigner who I was great friends with. He released a documentary called Shark Water, exposing the atrocity of shark finning industry and how many sharks are killed. And he was just an absolutely beautiful human being who I'd love to be able to reconnect with and have dinner with. He died doing what he loved. He died on a very dangerous diving expedition under the ocean. He would be an amazing person to connect with. I would love to bring Steve Jobs to the table. And probably like Estee Lauder, someone who was miles ahead of her time, and just got on with building a phenomenal company and was just a total boss at a time when that wasn't normally a thing. So that would probably be 3 people who are all dead, but who would be great to meet with.
What's the best thing you've learned?
The best thing I've learned is that everything's a team sport. It's the people you have around you that pretty much set the tone for everything. Every piece of change that you want to get done in the world relies upon enrolling others. Every great business relies upon your ability to enroll others and build that team. Family, right? Family's a team sport. Finding a really harmonious balance with your spouse and your kids is a team sport. So basically everything is a team sport, like all change, all transformation, all joy, all happiness. You've probably had this experience as well, right? I've had experiences where I'm sitting alone in a 5-star resort in Bali because I'm a speaker at a conference, and I'm sitting there watching the sun go down, having a cocktail by the pool. It's perfect, but I'm not there with anyone. And you're kind of like, oh, that sucks. And you think to yourself, yeah, right. It's the other people it's the other people who bring out the real joy in anything. And same thing, you can be sitting, in a silly little pokey little tiny restaurant, kebab shop, laughing, till tears roll out your eyes. And it's not the setting, it's the people that you're with. And suddenly, having fun is actually a team sport. So I guess the main thing I've learned is everything's a team sport.
It's impossible to scale, isn't it, without great teams everything once you hit a certain point.
Yeah, it's really sad. So many people say to me, I just don't ever want employees ever again. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure they don't want you ever again if you talk about them like that,
So Daniel, thank you so much. Go over to Amazon, get oversubscribed. But before we go, Daniel, the meaning of life.
The meaning of life is whatever you choose to make it. I think you have to make up a meaning for your life. You've got to make something up. I think we live in this great simulation where, you can roam around having adventures, but unless you come up with a reason for enjoying the simulation, you'll kind of find it dull soon enough. But for me, the meaning of life that I made up is to develop entrepreneurs who stand out, scale up, and solve meaningful problems in the world, and who come up with solutions to humanitarian, social, and environmental problems. And my job is to give them the frameworks for them to be able to go out and solve a meaningful problem in the world. So that's my meaningful life. That's my career meaning in life. That's what I dedicate my life to. And it's great. It's as soon as I made that up, then I got on with playing that game, and it's been great ever since.
Daniel, I really appreciate you. Thanks so much for being here. And so one more call to action: oversubscribe. Go get it. It's
cunningly hidden. Cunningly it's hidden. You're gonna have to dig through all those books and find it.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and I love how you think, and I cannot wait to spend more time with you in the future.
Cheers, Ed.
If you want further help in this area, we are opening up a couple of strategic calls with my team. It's not a sales call, all right? It's purely a one-to-one consultancy session, all right? It's a true value to our business at $500. That is what I charge our team out at a consultancy level. However, it's completely for free, all right? There's nothing for you to buy. It's a consultancy session, all right? At the end of that session, if it makes sense for you and if it makes sense for us, and if we believe that you have a good offer, all right, we'll make you an offer and we'll walk you through what potentially would entail becoming a client of ours. However, it's not a sales call and there's nothing to buy, okay? At the end of that, you will walk away with a clear plan, a clear structure of exactly how to do this, okay? And so we've had a great testimonials off the back of people booking calls. Someone like Gary who was stuck in his membership and it was like $97 a month. I hate low front end memberships. They don't work. It's very difficult to scale your business, especially when you're starting. Okay, and so we were able to help Gary plan out his signature program, plan out his increased prices, that he was able to take it up to a 5K offer, what he was needing to do to provide that. And as a direct result of that, was able to translate that into 3 sales off the back of that call within a short period of time. So that call in essence made him 15K, and that was a free call. So click the link below and you can book a strategy session with our team and they'll take you through that. There is an application process so that we are working with people that are serious. If you're not serious, please don't bother. All right, I appreciate you. Just go out, hang out with some more free information online. But if you are serious and you want help right now, then click the link, go through the application process. Make sure you fill that out effectively. If for whatever reason we don't believe that you're going to be serious or you're not going to turn up, then we will cancel that call because it's only on a first come basis. That being said, if you want a free strategy session of value, $500 to get you clear right now, then click the link and I'll see you there. All right, that's the end of today's session. Thanks for watching. If you like these sorts of videos, then subscribe to the channel and I look forward to seeing you again soon.